Hello, everyone, and welcome to another of South Asian Artists in Conversation with South Asian Artists. Today we have Raimu Itfum, and we're going to be talking about being a South Asian artist. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you could just introduce yourself and just tell everyone a bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. My name is Raimu, or you can just call me Rai. I am a actor, writer, director, amongst other things, like a podcaster. But those would be my main things that I do right now. And yeah, that's that. Do I need to talk about like my CV, some of the work that I've done, or just
Yeah,
that?
go for it. I just like people just to just sort of introduce themselves. So whatever you want to say,
Sure.
just as an intro, yeah.
Yeah, so those would be my things. I recently I'm part of the Soho Writers Lab, so I'm working on that. Did a short play showcase at the Kiln Theatre recently, and before that, I assistant directed at the Young Wing Theatre for Sundown Kiki. Last year, I also assistant choreographed on a film called What's Love Got to Do with It with Anthony Von Lost, who did Beauty and the Beast, Mamma Mia. And that has some of the wonderful talents that you have had on this live. So
Oh, amazing.
it has our wonderful, and well, I don't know why I'm saying it like that. It has a lovely Nikita Chadda in it who plays one of the roles. It's on her IMDb as well. And it has like Shazad Latif, Emma Watson, Lily James. So it was like a really fun project to do. And then yeah, I've done other bits and bobs as a dancer, like The Eternals, Aladdin, and then as an actor, I've done like Amdram Theatre, done a couple of like short films for like Tate Britain, Tate Modern, and just living my life out here, trying to do my best.
Yeah, and commercials we were speaking about as well.
Yeah,
You
just
you as well.
yeah.
I love how I bring that in. I was, oh yeah, you do commercials as well.
Yeah, but everybody does commercials. We were talking about a great buyout. You're gonna do it. Get your life
Yeah,
in. Yeah,
exactly. Make that dollar.
no doubt.
Well, no, it's so good that you're doing so many different things. I think it's like as a creator, sometimes it can be so hard to get like sort of trapped into one thing, and it's so nice to be able to sort of like delve into different things. And like, what actually inspired you to sort of want to go into the arts?
Wow. Okay, first it's so weird because I do this interview for Chai with Rai, and I
Oh,
ask that
okay.
question to every single person, and they're just like, I don't really know. To be honest with you, as in like a working, or just in terms of just generally how I got into the arts.
Yeah, I mean, like, what made like how you got in, and what made you like be like, okay, do you know what? I want to be an actor. I want to go into the creative industry.
So I would just say that I don't know if like you emphasize with this as well, but like just growing up, it was escapism for me. So whether that is like sketching, whether that was cooking in the kitchen with my nanny, because I feel like that's also like a creative process. Whether it was like my first English song that I listened to, which was Peter Andre, Mysterious Girl, and dancing to that, or like when I also lived in Pakistan and we would do like the school assemblies and I would sing in choir or like dance for that, it just felt like escapism because
Mhm.
I just felt like I couldn't fit in and belong anywhere else. So it just felt very comfortable and homely. And when I came to the UK, I realized things like drama club, which I didn't know. And like, other than reading like Shairi, which I did growing up, so like Ilham Iqbal, or like reading stuff like Rumi when I grew up, I just I had always an exposure to it, but my family always was very persistent and were like, no career in the arts. And
Mhm.
I say that because a voice just came into my head, don't be depressing, don't be depressing. I don't
No,
basically,
I mean, say it how it is or however you want to.
no, it's fine. Basically, one thing is to be South Asian. Then there's the complexities that come with it, right? So like if you're religious, or like if you come from like a religious family, or if you come from a specific caste, or if you come from like whatever. But then to add the fact that I was exploring my sexuality, and then to add the fact that I wanted to go into the arts, and then that I didn't want to be religious. I was just shitting on every dream of my family ever had for me. Let me just take this out. the moment's gone. So I was just like in this space for a long time where I was living like multiple lives. And then I kind of just decided through doing various clubs at school and universities after taking a gap year out and kind of living by the rule for my family that I wasn't mentally very happy. I turned to like an abusive lifestyle. So that was like drinking and smoking and just, being young. And then I went back to university, started studying again, and found myself just gravitating back to the industry. So whether that was like doing background work, doing Amtram work, joining Bollywood dance companies, coming across people, creating work. And that's how my path kind of came to be. But yeah, I always gravitated towards it because I always felt like the odd one out and not fitting in. And being in the arts in whatever medium, it just felt home. It just felt comfortable. Yeah.
And at uni, did you study anything related to the arts, or was that completely different?
No, I studied art. So I did this weird course, which I don't know if you went to drama school, right? If I'm correct in saying.
So I did an acting degree at uni, so it wasn't like an actual drama school, but
Where'd you go?
quite similar, yes. Well, I went to UCLan in Preston, so it's very like we do the same training as drama school. This is just kind of like half the hours because it's a uni. But yeah, really good course for like acting. Yeah.
So I did a H&D because I didn't know of like the routes of like the Brits or RADA or anything like that. So
Okay.
I went to college. So I did a H&D performing arts, and in order to turn that into a BA, you have to do a top up. So I went to Leeds Met. My governing body was Leeds Met, but it was facilitated by Newcastle College. So I lived in Newcastle for a year, and I graduated in contemporary acting and business management.
Wow! Oh my God, I've never heard of that mix before.
No. So I think they only did it for that year, but basically what happened was, did your third year do this or not? When I tell this, let me know. In your third year, in that specific course, they wanted to experiment and they wanted to see your third year should be what you want to be in the industry. At that point, there was a lot of conversations in my course about companies and doing fringe theatre. So I wanted to create a theatre company and tour it around fringe festivals and then turn that into a production company. Because when you did your fringe applications back in the day, it would always have like what production company it is. So I was like, why don't I just create a theatre company and then the umbrella company could be production. So I wanted to learn logistics on how to set up a company, contracts, taxes, just legal stuff and bits and bobs like that. So business management came in through that.
That's amazing. To be fair, I think that's such a good course because I think a lot of the time at unis or drama school, you're not obviously you're taught the kind of the training side, but you're not taught that much about how to sort of get into your own work, the tax side of business, the money side of it. So I think it's a good way to complement it. And at least you're doing a real degree as well as like acting. So I think, oh yeah, it's the first I've heard of that. That's so
Listen,
cool.
You're doing a real degree. Don't put yourself down.
No, I mean, well, I'm making.
I mean, I know what you mean. I'm just trying to be positive before we go into depressing.
No, thank you. No, I'm obviously it is, but like to other people, it's like, oh yeah, it's a fun little thing you do.
I didn't learn taxes. Like we had 2 days of people coming in to teach us about taxes. It was the most dumb shit, but it was hilarious.
They need to teach that more, I think, because you're just left on your own to figure out like, oh, I'm working for myself now. How do you do that? Like, oh.
Super easy now though. Like with registering online, like I graduated 12 years ago, 10, something like that. It was like you had to go into the offices, you had to submit this, you had to submit that. But now it's like super easy. You can just sign up online and like
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
I feel like I didn't do anything but sure.
You what?
I said I feel like I haven't done anything but sure.
No, you actually spoke about a lot. I think it'll be refreshing for people to hear something different because like I've heard like acting and like psychology, but not business. I think that was very
also we're matching today. We're both wearing salmon.
Oh my God, we totally did not plan this. We did not
plan this.
I love how things like that happen. Like you just...
True.
Okay. Question 2. What are some of your favorite things about being an artist or being in the industry?
Some of my favorite things about the industry.
Like being an artist.
I think two things would be my favorite things. One is it's that part of being in a playground.
Yeah.
So I'm sure lots of people will say this. So whether, you tour or whether you're on a set or whether in whatever capacity of the entertainment industry that you work with, it is like being a kid in a playground. I think that is something I love the most. And sometimes that can be a hindrance for who I am and for how people inhale that energy that I output, because I remember like when I've assistant directed or written or like being in a job of like that sort of authority, I'm still a kid in a playground. So sometimes people are like, you need to be like this, you need to treat your talent like this and stuff like that, which sometimes is hard for you to stop being a kid in a playground, because then there's like the pressure of the external voices. But
Mhm.
I will say there's nothing like this as well, when you do like an R&D week, or when you have like blocking rehearsals for a project that you're doing, or when you're reading just scripts and you're doing like a script read or a table read for like new writers or whatever it is, just like fooling and fucking around in a rehearsal room, there's nothing like that shit.
Yeah. Oh God.
Just even like when you're in your dress room and somebody's like, all right, company, this is your 15, like, and you're backstage like drinking tea and just bands and shits, stuff like that, meeting people and like all of those things. Kid in a playground, man. Just
Yeah.
kid in a playground. The second favorite thing about the industry would be, oh my God, I've so forgotten what it was. I will just end it with it. I've forgotten what the second thing is right now.
Having too much fun, like playing.
It is too much fun. But the second thing I would say, no, I can't say anything right now because the train of thought has left my
No,
head.
it'll trust me. It'll come back like
Yeah.
towards the end of it, or like as soon as we end this. But oh yeah, it's. But no, I agree with the sort of like what are the. I mean, I'm sure there are some jobs, but it's very rare to like be in a job where you can literally, like I said, be a kid or just experiment, and like things will either be not even wrong, you just get to like experiment in so many different ways, trying new things,
Yeah.
even things that feel silly could actually lead to like good ideas for the writer and director and everything. So I love that aspect. And like you said, yeah, working with so many different people, like I just love that you just get to meet so many new people, like
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I remember my second thought now, by the way.
oh yeah, it's coming.
Which is, well, I was watching your interviews because I saw a couple of the interviews that you did with people, and there's this feeling that you get, like even as we're talking right now, because this is part of our journey and this is part of being in our creative space, right? There's this encapsulating feeling that takes over, and there's nothing like that feeling, whether you're on a stage, whether I remember you talked about this with Nisha, and Nisha was saying, I think she was talking about Beyond Bollywood, not Beyond Bringing on the Bollywood. Fucking hell, there's so many Bollywoods. That when she's on stage, there's nothing like that feeling. I think I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people about this. You can't bottle up that feeling. There's something about this feeling that you get when you're doing something that you're passionate about and that fulfills you to a point that you're just like, why can't this just pay the job? What, like, why can't this pay the bills? Like, wouldn't you love it? Wouldn't you love it right now for this to be like your pay, for you to be getting like your month's rent out of this? Fab, month is taken. You do another interview.
That
That
would be amazing. Oh my god.
just
Anyone out there wants to hire me, I mean, you know.
which I mean, you should. You should also reach out to places. But like, this is the thing. We end up doing side jobs, which is great. But like, we're just like, what if I just did this and I
Oh,
got paid this and
yeah,
that was it? And this feeling is great, but why isn't it doing this? So yeah.
I get that. Yeah, and it's hard. Like you can't really describe, like words can't really describe the feeling that you feel. But we all know, like you said, as creators, what that feeling is. But it's so hard to actually describe what it is. So I think that's quite nice in a sense because it's like a very personal thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like, I wish like we could just do this full time and just get paid for like everything. But That is one of the downsides of
Hey,
in the
that's the life of a creative.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Next question. You mentioned it before. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast and
Sure.
how that came about? And yeah, just share a bit about your podcast.
So my show is called Chai with Rye. I don't know why I said it like that. My show is called.
It's could I get it wrong before? So.
It's so bad. Do you feel like sometimes when you do an interview or things like that, you're just like a different person,
Yeah.
and then afterwards you're like, oh my god. So so my show is called Chai with Rye. It came out, to be honest, out of a lot of depression and anxiety. I have always been a believer in the fact that if work is not provided for you, create platforms for yourself,
Yeah.
regardless of what the outcome you want it to be, whether it, like that is like you want X amount of, let's say if you're an influencer and you want X amount of followers to be able to do ads or bits and bobs. So I was going through this weird space where I was looking at our circle, the South Asian circle specifically, and I was looking at my work and how I fit in. And I was like, I have these deep, profound conversations, and there's no space, which includes banter, it includes like random shit, and there's no space that I can just catalog them and keep them so I can reflect from them. And I was going through this space where I went back to dancing for Bollywood companies and out of necessity having to do certain jobs, which I used to love. So until I got into the politics and the business of it, which happens a lot. And then that kind of consumed me. And I was like, I was having lots of conversations with people on how to do, and people were like, start your own dance company again, start your own theater company, do this. And I was like, that's not really what I want to do. I've never wanted to do that. I've always wanted to act and be a showrunner. So like people like I've always loved people like Michaela Cole or Aziz Ansari, Mindy Kaling, Robin Thede, and I was like, that is always the journey that I wanted to take. And I was like, it's not happened the way I envisioned it. So this is a very specific moment with Nisha that happened. We were having a deep conversation. I lived at Nisha's place in London Bridge. She allowed me to live in her space for at her flat in London Bridge for like a year, I want to say. And it's a banging space. Nisha, if you're listening to this, you've got a banging flat and I want it back. And if you could give me for the rent that you did, that'll be great.
Moving in after we
It was a banging place. So we went to the rooftop. And you can.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She got a rooftop which overlooks the Shard. No, but it's a really nice place, and it's a very humbling space as well. And we had this conversation, and she said some profound shit to me, and I was so. Naturally, I can't talk about it because that's personal stuff. But I just remember at that moment being like, I gotta do something about these conversations that I'm having, even if it is just for selfish reasons that I keep them. So I reached out to like a couple of people here and there, and I was like, I want to be able to talk shit the way that we do. So if I have a personal trainer on and they talk about mental health issues and they talk about how social media is the infrastructure why we have body image issues, I want to be called them on their bullshit and be like, well, you post bikini pics of you in 0% fat, you're promoting that. So like, why do you feel that is? And like, even when I had Nikita on, Nikita was talking about anxiety and depression. And I was like, from the outside looking in, I'm envious of what you have. And I have no shame in saying that because you are the epitome of somebody that's getting it. You get a job. You're loved by the industry. You're like what success, the quote unquote success is, and the poster child of it. So why the hell do you have depression and anxiety? Can you not leave that to us peasants on the side? Like let us have
it.
Yeah. So like I was like, what are you? So like questions like that, or being like, talk about politics in regards to, I remember some of the dancers I was managing when I was part of a company, they were promoting Black Lives Matter, but not promoting the stuff that was happening in terms of farmers' rights in Punjab. And I was like, you're Asian and not promoting that, but you're hopping on Black Lives Matter. And I'm not here to assess how you choose your political stances, but I would be like, why aren't you discussing that? Why are you not also discussing what happens in Yemen with Syrian refugees? Like so many things. And I was like, why are you posting black? So I wanted to have these conversations, but at the same time be like, the next video is gonna be like of this and this and this, and you're gonna do an improv now. So I wanted just to do a random shit like that. So it came out of that. And then it blew up to me asking like theatre practitioners who I looked up to. So like I recently interviewed Cash, who was like Cash Arshad, who
Oh,
got
amazing.
nominated. Yeah. So that was really lovely. And then yeah, it just grew up. But I don't know if you have felt this, which is I've been cancelled on the day. And I have also been bailed out because you're trying to grow this platform, right? Channel's called South Asian Artists. That is your platform. You're trying to grow this and you want X, Y, and Z people and you want to be able to do that. Some people don't respond to your emails. Some people will cancel on you. Some people don't check for you or don't share it in the same way that you do. And then that gets disheartening and you're just like, "What?" So
Yeah.
you're just like, bro.
Yeah, and I think just because the way we work as creators as well, everyone has either busy schedules or literally, as we know, stuff can come up, and it's very. Luckily, it's been good so far, but again, it has been very hard to sort of get people's schedules, and obviously, like I'm not like I've had to cancel last minute, but it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, we're gonna have this chat, but oh no, we might have to cancel last minute. You know, it can be stressful, but it's just the nature of the beast, and I think what stood out to me and the thing about you mentioned about the anxiety and depression with Nikita, I think it just goes to show that literally social media is just for most people it's just like a massive highlight reel, and you only see, I mean, I know some people don't share all the positives, but you only basically people share what they want to share, and you just think, oh, this person's living an amazing life, but obviously you don't know what is actually going on. So I think it's really refreshing to have those, because it's like someone could look on the outside, be like, okay, you've got everything, but inside it's like, oh, actually, there's so much going on. So I think it's very refreshing to have conversations because so much comes out of it. But for you as well, it was probably like for me, it was like, oh, there's so many things I want to speak about, and then you finally had the platform where you're like, oh my god, I can actually have these conversations with people. So it must
A lot of people, it's with some of the guests that you've had, I've had these conversations with. I think some of the lessons that I have learned through doing the show and just being in this industry, sometimes people don't want to be around those conversations because it can be triggering for their own journey. Like everybody wants to be around like nice energy and positivity and lighthearted and fun, right? And you want to be, and I've been reading like lots of self-help and listening to like podcasts and things like that, and people are like, you want to surround yourself with people who will push you and who will be successful, careers you want to emulate, or like a community. And you're like, sometimes life is depressing, but people don't want to necessarily hear that shit or be around that. But I'm a depressing soul predominantly, like a lot of the times, and I will speak about that shit. And if that's not your cup of tea and my weird energy is not your cup of tea, then fine, that's that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes those conversations need to be had, because I feel like these conversations, there's always someone who's going to relate, will be like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I've been waiting for a conversation like that to happen. And it's not spoke about. And finally, you're the person who've done that. So I feel like you'll find that there's so many people that are like, wow, you're the one that brought that conversation out. So I think it's just important. I think if you want to speak about a specific issue, then you should can't even talk.
You got this. You got this.
On.
Shine, sweetie, shine. Wait, you have a tattoo? I didn't realize this.
Yeah, it's like an infinity with a bird.
Oh.
About 4 years ago now. Yeah.
Why did you get it? What made you get it? Please leave this in the interview so that people know.
I mean, I've been wanting a tattoo for like quite a while, and I was like, I don't know what to get. And I know like infinity, a lot of people have it, but I was like, I don't want just an infinity because it's a bit basic. So I was like, an infinity kind of cheesy, like kind of, yeah, like never giving up, keep going. And then the bird kind of represents like freedom. So I thought like the bird with the infinity would look so sick. And I was gonna have like 3 birds, but I didn't want it massive. And I was also thinking like, should I, because it's in such an obvious place, especially for like acting and stuff. But I was like,
Yeah.
You can easily cover it, and I'm like, it's my body, and this is gonna be on me for the rest of my life. I'm like, I'm not gonna let acting, deter me from getting on. So that's the story.
Can I just say, the first time I ever saw your interview with somebody, I was like, you have such a stunning face, dude. And you have such good, and I said this to you, I don't know if you remember. I was like, oh my God, you have these such cute eyes. They're like so round, so cute. No, but seriously, you're a stunner, man. Stunner.
Thank you. So are you.
Thank you. We all are. To all of you
That is so
listening,
beautiful.
to all of you listening, yeah, you are beautiful.
Okay, this is question 4. What are like some of the biggest things that you've learned whilst being in the industry that you wish you knew before entering?
What have I learned about the industry that before? This was what I was talking before. You get into something because you're passionate about it, right? So let's talk about it from a different perspective. You get into cooking. There's a lovely documentary by named of Chef's Table. Have you watched it?
No, not.
So banging. The way that it's shot, I want to produce like visual pieces like that. So banging. There's a person on there who is a Buddhist monk, if I'm correct in saying, and she talks about the way we inhale food, where her inspiration comes from, and how she passes on that knowledge to the next generation. So she talks about like pungent spices and things like that. So basically the story that I'm getting into, she has a passion for something, right? And she's passing that on. She's a monk, so she can disassociate this. I can't. So she, but imagine her getting into the cooking industry. No chef wants to work 12 to 14 hours. That's not what they're about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Live in small, like contingency spaces, get paid not that great, and then one day to be effectively have their restaurant or things like that, if they make it through things. So like be the first one in, be the last one out, keep growing, keep like eating onions, whatever it is, to be able to get to make a Michelin star restaurant. I wish I knew the politics of the industry and how that can be consuming and how that can be demoralizing, devaluing, and just pull on so many things. The other thing is the instability that happens, whether that is financially, like you could be doing a project that is like, oh my God, this is it, this is my shine. And then it comes out and your scenes are cut, or like you're no longer in that project, or like, whatever it is. Things like that I don't understand. And like going broke for like 6 months and then having to do shitty jobs when you feel like you've gone like boom, boom, boom. And the last thing I would say is relationships. I come from a broken space. So I used to think that anybody that would show me love was going to be a part of my chosen family. But the reality of the situation is you work with these people and we have a common thread, which is artisticness, let's say, for a lack of better word. But after the job is done, the reality of the situation is, and be it a fantasy of the situation, that chapter has come to a closing. You might write another book with them, or you might be another book with them, but you might also like, I'd say, what would you say, 7 out of 10 times we don't end up speaking to a lot of people we'll say we go on tour with.
Yeah, and also I think sometimes like when you're working, it's because you're working so intimately and like so long in such a short period of time. You're like, oh, we'll meet up and stuff after, but then it's like people get busy, other things. Yeah, life happens, and just people kind of change and stuff.
Exactly.
So.
And you're hustling and you're grinding. You're trying to live your own life. Like, so I can't understand sometimes the relationship, and that's why I've had to like put boundaries in space for myself to be able to deal with certain things. When I love and I connect with somebody, I connect hard. So like I'm either black or white. I don't have a lot of linear gray spaces. So I've had to learn to understand how to protect my heart, protect my sanity, and to not be like, just because like I don't have a relationship with my immediate family, or I don't have like X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean that any person coming along who I connect with will be like my savior and like my do and die. Like they're there for a time and I'm there for a time, and we're creating something, but after that I have to learn and move on to the next or to the next. That is something that sometimes is a lot sad.
It is.
Yeah.
You're yeah, like I said, you're working with them and it feels like, oh, we're gonna be like besties forever. But then it's like it's hard as well if you work with so many different people. It's draining to like maintain those relationships, but then things move on. So it's like, yeah, that is one of the sad things.
Also stereotyping. Sometimes I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, because Arthur, you're younger than me, right?
How old are you? 25. I'm 25.
I think the new, would you be in Gen Z then? You'll be in Gen Z?
Oh, wait, am I Gen Z? I don't think I'm Gen Z. I need to check. What are you?
I'm millennial because I'm 91. So I went through.
I think it's 1997. I can't remember. I think I'm like 1 year off millennial.
I think you might be millennial. Let's just go with it. Or you might be Gen Z. You might be a hybrid.
I need to figure out. I know I'm 1 year off one of them.
But the thing is, I think in the realm that I came up with, if you were a dancer, you were a dancer. If you were a singer, you were a singer. There were very few spaces for like actor, writer, blah, blah, blah. And then if you were Asian, and then if you were queer, and then if you were, you know, fat, skinny, you know, all those things, like there were very, very few boxes for us to be able to space ourselves into, like the goodness gracious era of all of these people, and the Taras and the Tamashas and Kali Theatre. All of these spaces created great platforms for South Asians to be able to exist, right? But if you didn't fit in those molds and if you didn't get into those pockets, I often found it very hard to be in spaces. So I would go to auditions, and to this day, and that's one of the things I talk about in Child with Rai, we don't have a lot of South Asian dancers in the industry that aren't doing South Asian projects, if you think about it. Pick a tour, we're always brought together for South Asian projects. When was the last time you saw more than 2 South Asian dancers on a music video, on a commercial, or anything like that? Shit like that. It might have progressed because I haven't been in that space for the last, I'd say, 2 years, but we're not brought together. Whereas Black dancers are, white dancers are, mixed dancers are, hell, even Hispanic dancers, Colombian. Like, I know so many that are brought together, but Asian dancers, that means East Asians, that means all of the subcontinents. I don't know, Raven Simone meaning this shit, but like we're not brought together and we're boxed a lot.
Yeah, because I was actually a couple of days ago spoke to Anjali Mehra, and she.
Oh yeah, I followed her because of you, because I was like, oh God, I don't know her.
She used to be a dancer, so she's half. I think she said half Indian and half white, and she now does like choreography and movement directing. But her background is like predominantly ballet. So we were just sort of speaking about how I've seen so many like South Asian dancers doing like Bollywood or South Asian styles, but not other styles. And you know, like I in Eternals, I was obviously like over 50 South Asian dancers doing Bollywood, but I've also like not seen loads of South Asians doing other styles. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that you don't really see that.
No, I feel like in acting there's more of a representation, if I'm correct. But even if we then start dissecting the casting directors for that do acting projects, you'll have a Punjabi girl who comes off a Sikh background playing a Muslim hijabi. What constitutes that as okay and ethical when you'll have a straight cis white man play a heterosexual role or a disabled role, versus a disabled role which is also cis white, but you want to get a disabled person to do that role? Maybe I'm comparing apples and oranges, but the point that I'm trying to make, if you can make ethical choices for other things, why can't you make ethical informational choices in your Asian castings? To this day, we don't have maybe a lot of Malayalis, a lot of Bengalis, a lot of Nepalese. People still, to this day, pardon me and call me out when this gets released if I'm ignorant this, the boxing of Chinese, Japanese, Malaysian, Indonesian, like so many different things that are just mushed together.
Do you know what? Because I've noticed this recently, because a lot of castings that are for South Asian, what I've noticed, it will predominantly say like Indian, and then there's two questions. There's like, okay, does that mean only Indian actors can apply, or can anyone who's South Asian apply? And it's just like the clarity isn't really there. And again, if you are looking for Indian, then what about Pakistani? What about Sri Lanka? What about everyone else? Like the focus is so much on Indian, and it as well with like East Asian. Again, it's all quite categorized, where it's not. I never see where it's specifically Japanese or Chinese. I mean, not to say it doesn't happen, but there is a lot of boxing. I think there needs to be more conversations about being more precise in terms of exactly what you want. But yeah, I mean, that's another whole like.
But I also find that conversation, I don't know when that's going to happen, and I don't know how that is going to happen, because I don't know if you feel like this, which is I don't feel that people are ready to have that conversation.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that needs to be said in terms of like there's so many. It's a hard one, because then it's like if you just don't know what you want, then that's fair enough. Like that's why people sort of like be like, okay, we're looking for Asian. But I think it's a lot of work needs to be done in terms of how to actually go about doing it and the best, because I think everyone's going to have so many mixed opinions on this. I think that's why it's a conversation now.
My thing becomes this, which I don't know if you agree with this. I recently went up for Satinder Chauhan and Tamasha are putting on a Lotus Beauty, so I applied for the assistant director in that role. And I kind of knew as I was doing my interview that I wouldn't get that job because it's a female-based project, and I would be there for a conversation, but I wanted to be there and meet Pooja. And I had this conversation with her in regards to that, and even Cash I did, and Gularana and Afshan and all of these people. And it comes from representation behind the scenes. We don't just necessarily need South Asians. We need the world that we see around us, right? So, correct in saying you said Anjali, right? Who was the lady that you interviewed?
Anjali Maria.
Anjali. How many, other than Bollywood, people do you know who work in the contemporary realm, other than Akram Khan and Mavin, who create that sort of narrative for us or represent our voice? You have so many white choreographers and Iranian choreographers and other, even black choreographers representing their voices into the pot, but we don't have a lot. And Cash said this to me when I told him that I had a dance background, and so did Pooja. They were like, there's Meena Anwar, there's maybe a couple more, but there's not a lot of, and there's Vidya Patel, but there's not a lot of South Asians that use their directing and text facilitation with movement. And they were like, you might want to train in all those things, because that would be your pocket into what sort of work you want to create. So I'm also now looking at RTYDS. Do you know of RTYDS?
No, what's that?
RTYDS is a scheme where you basically, for all of your listeners, by the way, if anybody wants to do directing, you have RTYDS, which is, I think, Regional Theatres Young Development something, and you go on their website, you can apply via a theatre company to do an introductory, so you shadow people, you go and train the assistant director role, if I'm correct, that's one of their program. The second one is to assistant direct, so that's a 3-month placement, and then there's an 18-month placement, and it's all paid and funded for. I think the only catch is you need to have a close relationship with a theatre company to be able to facilitate a space, but the theatre company necessarily won't lose out on anything. If anything, they're getting paid to have you on. Yeah, so Cash did it. If I'm correct in saying Samina, who is in Leeds Playhouse, I think she's done it as well. There's a lot of people who've done it, and I would heavily advise for people who are in the industry to kind of like, I feel like we actually have a lot of South Asian directors, by the way.
Do you know what we
just need to get into the spaces.
No, there are more, because like initially, like when I started this in lockdown, it was predominantly like actors and dancers, and then more recently, that could just be my own ignorance as well, I am coming across so many more South Asian.
Right.
I feel like there's a lot more South Asian theatre directors, which I've noticed, as opposed to TV.
Agreed.
That's what in the UK at least, and it's so refreshing to see like so many more. I'm like, oh, finally, yeah.
But then the pressure goes on them to create like
Oh yeah.
a certain type of, you know what I mean, voice. And also then I asked, when Cash did an adventure at, was it at the Octagon, right?
Yeah.
I asked him, I was like, do you get pressure to, because I saw the dress rehearsal and I went in and I was like, do you get pressure to do now like just South Asian projects? And what if you get a project that is like a Bengali thing and you're not Bengali? Like, do you get pressure to do that? Or then you're like, if I don't take this, then this white director will, or this one will. So there's a double-edged sword with that shit as well.
Yeah, because people expect, oh, just because you're South Asian, you'll know about all the other stories, and I think it's one of the ironic things, because there's still, as in compared to the actors, there's a lot less South Asian directors, so there is that pressure, because we've got so many stories to try and tell them all in one production, but it's like you can't do that, and then it just takes away from what you're actually trying to convey if you try and do too much in one production. So
Which also brings us to finance as well. Like, and when you apply for grants, like understanding the formula of getting those grants, where you will get grants if you now include PSL in it, if you include accessibility in it, if it's a historical piece, it'll get funding straight away. If it's this piece, it'll get straight away. I'm just like,
I know. So what, does it not include certain things then, or is it very specific? I've never like had
it's acceleration. So if you think about like certain things will get produced more because there's a lack of a voice of it. So if you find like you're just trying to create a love story, right? And that is your piece, whether that is like, let's say you're creating a short film for BFI, or if you're creating a theater piece, that is your vision that you want to make. It might not get funded because there's 5,000 love stories out there. What separates your your story? So then you might be like, oh, it's about the Mughal Empire thing that happened a long time ago, and I want to tell this, and I want to tell that. And then you'll be like, oh, and the princess was deaf, so I'm going to include BS in it. So then you're like, oh, ding, 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 ding. And it's going to include, do we still use the word BAME? Let's just put it out there.
No, I think it's, people are saying global majority, but even that, it's still boxing. But I think global majority is a lot better than, because that powers us more than like BAME. So yeah, global majority. Yeah.
So then if you put, it's going to be played by global majorities, we're not going to marginalize. You were like, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. And I guess, yeah, it's sort of like, again, with having South Asian directors, there is that pressure to tell South Asian stories, but sometimes people just want to tell stories where, yeah, the characters are South Asian or Middle Eastern or whatever, but it doesn't have to, it's not the be all and end all. It's not centric to the character that you're South Asian. So I think that's well, where people like expect you to tell a story, but it's like, no, you just want to tell a story. Oh yeah, the cast of South Asian, that's great.
What else?
Yeah.
It's interesting you're saying this, because Iman Qureshi, who writes beautiful plays, and I was at Soho Writers yesterday because I'm part of the Writers Lab. She was doing a Q&A because she has a play on at Soho right now. And she basically talked about how in this play that she's written, I can't remember what the title of it is, something lesbians.
Okay.
So that the word lesbians is at the end. I think it might be like the joy of the something. It's a good play. I have the transcript. I can send it to you, by the way, as well. She was talking about how in this play she didn't want to write any South Asian characters because she's exhausted by like literally trying to research and find and showcase her like ethnicity and her like thing. But isn't that interesting to be like, yeah, I am very sick and tired of telling that story. Like, I don't want to have to write the fact that I got kicked out of by my family and that's my true story, and X, Y, and Z, but also that is my story and I have to find.
I think that's what I've been thinking about recently. I think there's been a few conversations, because I think it's like, it's so important to share our stories, and also it's so important to share our traumas, but at the same time we're sick of like just everything being about traumas or stereotypes, and we just want to share something completely different that portrays us in a different light. So I think it's good to have them, but it's good to have other things as well. I just think that's the thing, we just need more of everything out there, because then there won't be that pressure, oh, we've not told this so you should tell that, but it's like, no.
This is why if I could get financed and
Yeah.
I could get financed, and if every person who's not us could get financed to write stories, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, exactly, that is what we're gonna aim for. A little bit aware like of the time, so we're just going to jump into the fun
The rapid fire round.
the fire round question. Okay, cool. Question 1, what is your favorite Bollywood film?
Shri 420 or Hum Saath Saath Hain.
Okay. Do you know, I'm bad. I'm not seeing any of those, but I've been wanting to watch. So
watch it. It's my favorite film. I make every Asian person who comes into my life and we become like this watch it, and everybody hates it, but I love it.
Right, that is my next one to watch. That's next on my list.
Do it.
Okay, salt or sweet popcorn?
Sweet.
Sweet. Good. I like a mix. Have you had like sweet and salt?
I have. I just like sweet.
Sweet.
My family's diabetic. I'm gonna get diabetes anyway, so I'm just pushing that.
Push it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your favorite day of the week?
Is this a miscongeniality question where it's just like, my favorite day is March 13th because it's not too hot and it's not too cold?
Years ago, I can't.
Like Monday to Sunday sort of thing.
I mean, do you know? Oh, I didn't think of that. I mean, yeah, Monday to Sunday, but also like your actual like a day.
A day throughout the year. That's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, go for both.
I don't really have one to.
Do Monday to Sunday then. What's your?
I feel like I can't tell the difference anymore because like we don't shut off, so I don't really have a favorite day. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. Honestly, I feel like recently all the days are just like
one.
No, the day before yesterday, I was like, I thought it was Saturday, it was Friday, and it just, yeah, all the days are becoming one.
I like this sort of day. How about this? I'll tell you this. I like waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, having a cold shower, working till I would love to wake up, have a little coffee, have like my little dog with me. I'll tell you my ideal day. Wake up in the morning, have a cold shower, have my dog with me, have some business meetings where they're like, Netflix wants you to do this. Oh, I'm also called. What are we doing about this Disney film? Okay, great. This. And then I go for a little run, a little jog. I go to set, I go to a little party or whatever like that. That's my day. That's what I want.
Like perfect day. Apart from the cold shower, I like warm, but like, I mean.
Oh, no, you gotta do cold showers.
Why cold? Are they like?
It's really good for you. I'm trying to get everybody on this as well. And Hum Saath Saath Hain.
I hate hot. Okay.
Just try
I
it.
know hot showers aren't meant to be good for you, so I know.
Gets rid of the moisture in your skin. Cold showers is great.
To be fair, now that it's becoming summer, I'm like wanting colder ones. So
just a little bit.
Cool. Okay. Would you rather win the lottery or live twice as long?
Did you say live twice as what?
As long.
Like live into the new centuries or millenniums?
Yeah. However, yeah, like 200 years or however long you're.
Am I going to be rich or broke when, like, if I live too long?
How you are now, basically.
Oh.
Hard one.
I feel like the diplomatic answer would be win the lottery, because honestly, I would invest it into things that would generate income for other people as well as myself. And I would thoroughly like one day for the ideology of homelessness to go away. And I want to create like a women's shelter where they learn self-defense. So I would love that, but also the idea of living longer than anybody just so I can do this to some degree is also very appealing.
Every new person you meet.
Yeah. Also, I'm listening to this book, reading this book right now called How to Stop Time. And it's about this guy who is part of like the Albertan Society, people who have a disease who live like thousands and thousands and centuries of years. and he talks about like how he worked for Shakespeare at Once Upon a Time and X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I can't pick. What would you do?
I think I would want to win the lottery because, I mean, more money, but also, yeah, I feel like with that, I'd be able to help out so many charities, homeless, like so many causes. And also, I feel like living too long, I would just get bored because, like, I feel like that's just 200 years. I feel like that's, I mean, if I'm going to live 200, touch wood.
Hey, you never know.
I know, who knows? But I feel like it would just be too long. I would get bored. Final question: what advice would you give to your younger self? It's a hard one.
That is a hard one.
I would write a book.
Learn to be your best. Learn to be kind to yourself and like be your best friend. And like, you know, do all those things, because I've said this to other people that sometimes if you don't have the pillars of support of your family, your friends, or people around you, you don't have confidence as a person yourself, you don't have religion, faith, and things like that. Like I suffer because of those things. So if you can learn to be your own hero, if you can learn to be your own best friend and big yourself up, and you can do that consistently every day, yeah, I would love for my younger self to be on that journey from that age as opposed to now, because I wonder what life would be like now.
I know. I think that's such an important one because I think people like bypass and you don't realize how much you are like you're with in your thoughts like over 70% of the time or more, and it's like, well, you need to be feeding that good things about yourself because that's you're with yourself the whole time. So I think more people need to know that. So that's a really good thing to end on. And thank you so much. I love these interviews because I feel like they just speak about so much and like they're all just so different with everyone. Everyone brings like different flavor and taste. So thank you for sharing like so much with everyone.
And thank you for asking. Thank you for just the glow up that you have. And